there guys, the PC guy here with the news in tech and gaming for the week, and the week was mostly dominated by CES, and I'm not going to bore you guys again with sum up of that right at the start of the video, so I'll just do a very quick overhaul at the end of the other topics that I will be talking about, which are non-CES related. So look at the timestamps in the description if you want to look for something in particular. First thing I want to talk about is not directly CES related, but it's kind of the aftermath of CES with AMD's 5600 XT announcement. Apparently EVGA is launching an RTX 2060 KO edition, which is dropping the price by a fair margin to $299, down from the reasonably, well, a bit higher $349 that it usually sells for, which is about 50%. This is clearly a response to the 5600 XT. However, it's not necessarily a response on Nvidia's part. This seems to be an initiative of EVGA themselves trying to, well, keep selling their stock of 2060 obviously, and EVGA is a partner of Nvidia in their graphics card releases obviously, but not of AMD. Some brands have cards from both AMD and Nvidia, like for example ASUS, but EVGA is Nvidia only, so this launch of the 5600 XT was going to hurt their bottom line because they cannot launch it themselves, and they rely on the 2060 to sell on that price range. So this might just be an EVGA, well, let's say initiative. However, having the 2060 at this price point from one vendor might make all the other vendors also drop their prices, obviously, to compete. So we could be seeing an adjustment, let's say, on the RTX 2060's prices from here on. Still on topic of AMD graphics cards, an unknown AMD Radeon RX CPU has showed up on the OpenVR benchmark, and they claim it outperforms the RTX 2080 Ti by up to 17%. Now, we should be taking this both with a grain of salt and both with some excitement, because the 70% they mention here is 70% compared to the highest clocked RTX 2080 Ti. So if you compare to the reference model, we're talking about a roughly 30% increase. So there is possibly a chance that this is the big Navi that everyone's talking about. However, there are other options that some people have brought up, like for example an engineering sample of some other unreleased product, possibly not consumer grade. It could be an AMD APU with a graphics card from Nvidia, which would be strange but possible, and could also possibly be a dual graphic card solution, even though that's also very unlikely because crossfire isn't really something that they usually test for. It's in the engineering sample still, it's not the final product, we don't even know what product it is, so it could potentially be even more of an improvement than this, and well, it could even not be a consumer card like I mentioned. If this does turn out to be big Navi, then that's pretty great news really, because 30% over the TI reference edition, who knows how it will overclock or not, but that's not the point. 30% over the 20 Ti reference is potentially more than the 2080 Ti had over the 1080 Ti. So AMD would be kind of doing more improvement over the last generation than Nvidia themselves did over their own last generation. Now the question is, how will this line up against the 3080 Ti? I'm assuming that's what it's going to be called, because, well, the 7nm process is going to be a new one for Nvidia, and we are hearing a lot of wild rumors about its performance and power efficiency. However, we don't know anything concrete. So it could be a massive leap, it could be a great improvement over the 2000 series, or it could be a sort of an adjustment to the new node, and the wild numbers that we are hearing are pertaining mostly to things like ray tracing, and the ray tracing maybe will be a lot better, but who knows about the traditional rasterized content. So yeah, grain of salt on there. But what we do know is what this article mentions, that it is 30% faster than 2080 Ti, and might potentially be a big Navi without any certainties, obviously. Now the next article is slightly hilarious. Intel is prototyping their Optane 3D X-Point SSDs. They're already being sent out for testing, and they offer PCIe 4.0 support. Now the punchline is that Intel has no PCIe 4.0 solutions in terms of CPUs, and AMD does. So if you are wanting to test these, if Intel themselves want to test their own features, they'll be having to use AMD CPUs for them, because their current generation does not support it. Neither will the next generation support PCIe 4.0 either. So it's kind of a weird place for Intel to be, where they need their competitors' products to test their own stuff. So just wanted to throw this one out there. Last but not least, for the news of the week, Nvidia's driver, they're calling it the CES Game Ready driver, because that's when they talked about some of its features, but in any case, it's a driver update for everyone. And it's bringing a few interesting new additions. Most importantly, the variable rate super sampling is the one that's really catching everyone's eye. There are others, for example, like new filters that you can add to your game screen, image sharpening updates, as well as a max frame rate that is designed to, well, like it says here, save battery life, reduce latency for games that have crazy high frame rate. Then it will imagine that your laptop is running CSGO or something at 200 FPS, but the screen is a 120 Hz screen. Then you might as well cap it to 120, because there's not really that much of a point, I suppose. But the variable rate super sampling is a bit of an interesting addition. This technology is mostly interesting for VR and VR headsets, where you are looking mostly at the center of the screen. And what it will do is, as long as there is GPU headroom, and this is important because otherwise it would be potentially dropping your frame rate, and that is pretty essential for VR experiences. Otherwise you get things like motion sickness and all sorts of other weird VR afflictions, let's call it. So this is mostly a VR thing, and it will ensure that the center of your screen, or you are mostly focused on, is rendered at a higher resolution with higher quality. Because, well, let's face it, that's usually what you're looking at, and the stuff on your peripheral vision is a bit it's just there. So if it's a little bit lower image quality, you probably won't notice much. And when you turn your head in VR, that is, to look at it, then that will be the new center of the screen, obviously, and it will then be focused at high resolution. As long as this is operated at very high speed, obviously, so you are not aware that it is happening, this should give improvement both in terms of quality and in terms of frame consistency for VR. The comparisons that they show, and keep in mind these are Nvidia's own numbers, claim that you can get a boost from anywhere to like 80-ish FPS to 120 just by using this new feature. VR still has a ways to go, in my opinion, both in terms of the hardware, in terms of both in quality and accessibility, price-wise, that is, but as well as the quality of games in there still has a ways to go. However, it does seem to be very promising in terms of full game immersion for people that do enjoy that. This seems to be a pretty decent leap in terms of hardware and software improvement to make it a better experience. And, well, let's say I really would like to see how VR is in like 5 to 10 years from now or something, when the hardware is a bit further along and the games are a bit more polished and a bit more AAA quality that we are used to in traditional games. In any case, as you might expect, most of the news of the week were released at CES, so there's not a whole lot left other than this. And if you are interested in what exactly each company announced at CES, I do have a couple of videos from CES that I released earlier this week, so I'll link them in the cards up above, as well as on the end screen, or well, just look in the channel and you'll find them. Really, it's the videos before this one. But as a quick roundup, AMD focused a lot on their own laptop chip launches. They are going to be the 4000 series, still based on Zen 2 architecture, even though they are 4000 series. So they are not Zen 3 quite yet. They also announced the 5600 XT and talked about a bunch of other things, including the Smart Shift feature that should allow a bit more balance between GPU and CPU loads in machines that do have an APU or, well, a CPU with an integrated GPU in it. Intel didn't really show off their next generation of desktop CPUs yet. something that I was expecting. They focused a lot on foldable devices and interactive screens and some AI features that Adobe Premiere is going to be featuring, and the possible dangers of substance abuse on stage. But other than that, a lot of other things were left, well, kind of up in the air, while we were hoping to actually hear some information about that. Same can be said for Nvidia. No new product announcements, no Ampere, a lot of talk on other topics, those drivers that I just mentioned, and yeah, not a whole lot else that we as gamers and enthusiasts were actually looking forward to. There was also no big Navi announcement from AMD, so they are both kind of keeping the cards close to their chest on that aspect. Microsoft did not show any Xbox specific information. Sony did a waste of time of a keynote, really, just to show off the logo for the PS5. So it was a bit disappointing in terms of features. But in any case, if you want a more detailed explanation, as well as some other interesting products that were there were some quite interesting things that I saw. Some did not make it to the videos I made. Like $14,000 cases, things like that are just really designer items that are not even very handy, if you ask me. But in any case, there are some interesting, a bit more down-to-earth items that I thought were interesting, and you'll be able to find on those videos. That will be, like I said, end of this video on the end cards, or they will be in the cards up above somewhere along the video. So drop a comment, let us know what exactly do you think of CES and what are you excited about for the next year, because I'm wondering how Zen 3 will perform. It has been confirmed already for this year. Big Navi has already been confirmed for this year on the AMD Q&A after the keynote. And yeah, no exact date, no exact specs, but it is confirmed. And that is one of the things I'm most excited for, along with Ampere from Nvidia, kind of how they perform against each other, and if they will be a bit closer than they have been so far, going neck to neck on the high end. So let me know about that. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed this content. If you didn't, well, you know what to do. And feel free to check the rest of the videos and consider subscribing to the channel if you enjoy them, to help us grow a little bit more in the future and provide better videos and content. This has been Ethic PC Guy. I'll see you on the next video. In the meantime, have fun.